Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to call this special meeting of the Bloomington City Council to order. Wednesday, November 10th. We're here tonight to canvass the city general election results. We will start tonight with a roll call. Mr. Brillett, if you could please call the roll of the council.
Councilmember Beloga.
Present.
Carter.
Present.
Coulter.
Present.
Lohman.
Present.
Councilmember Nelson.
Here.
Mayor Bussey.
Present. There's 6 of the 7 Bloomington City Council members present this evening. Councilmember Martin is not available again this evening. So we have one item on our agenda this evening, and that is to, as I said, canvass the city general election results. And with that, I will turn it over to our city clerk, Christine Scapone. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm excited to be here tonight. You can go ahead and go to the first slide. So before I get to the results, I just wanted to provide a little kind of background since this is our first ranked choice voting election here in Bloomington. So as a reminder, we provided a lot of outreach opportunities and conducted a lot of outreach opportunities throughout the summer and fall so that our residents were aware their ballots would look different this year. We made over 80 different community connections, whether it be National Night Out, city events, private events that we were invited to. We also held a mock election July 31st through August 6th so that our community members could come in and practice ranked choice voting. In our election judge training, we spent time ensuring that our judges understood what the frequently asked questions were and understood how to answer those when our voters had questions in the polling places. And then, of course, we worked with communications to use our variety of communication outreach tools that we have, videos, social media, and information in our Bloomington briefing. Can I have you go to the next slide? Thank you. So overall, our turnout for this election was 26%. We had 15,504 ballots cast. Of those, 2,549 were absentee and early voting ballots. At 7 a.m., we had 59,152 registered voters. We processed 354 registrations throughout Election Day, and so we ended the day with 59,506 registered voters. Before I go into the results for each race, I wanted to kind of do a little explanation or provide a little explanation for our election night results and then our RCV tabulation round results. So on election night, when we're determining if there is an election night winner that can be declared, we are looking at what's called the total maximum threshold. And so that is all of the votes cast for that particular district or for the whole city in the case of the at-large race, divided by 2 and adding 1. And so what all votes cast means is it means all the first choice votes for a candidate, first choice votes for write-in candidates, and then it means undervotes for first choice ranking and overvotes. And so that means the voter didn't fill out, an undervote is where a voter didn't fill out a first choice ranking in a race, and an overvote is where a voter filled in too many bubbles for that first choice ranking. And so I know that gets a little confusing because the Secretary of State's website doesn't report out on election night those undervotes and overvotes. And so for folks who went to the Secretary of State's website and then saw the percentages that were calculated, those were only based on votes for candidates. It didn't include the total votes cast because it left out the undervotes and the overvotes. And so on the city's website, when we reported out on election night, we included that total maximum threshold of all the votes that were cast. And that's what we need to look at on election night to determine whether or not we need to go through additional tabulation rounds for that particular race. So as I'm sure you're all aware, we did need to use tabulation rounds for all 3 of our races. And so if you can go to the next slide, I'll talk about that process then a little bit. So for our tabulation rounds, our threshold changes because we're actually physically looking at the ballots to determine if the voters that had overvotes or undervotes in their first choice ranking, if they had a valid continuing vote and a different ranking on that ballot. And so then we look at, for our threshold, active ballots. So the ballots where a vote in that race actually can be counted toward a candidate. We divide that by 2, and then we add 1. And that is our new threshold when we are going through our tabulation rounds. And in our tabulation rounds, we report out inactive ballots. And inactive ballots are those ballots where the voter, they either didn't vote at all, in that particular race. They undervoted all of the rankings. They maybe had an error out in all the rankings. They overvoted each ranking, and we can't determine voter intent. Or, as we go through the tabulation rounds, the voters' candidates they have marked are no longer active, and so they no longer have a vote for any active candidates on that ballot. And so you see our statistics change a little bit when we're doing our tabulation rounds as opposed to our election night reporting. So now to go through our races. So on election night for our at-large council member race, our threshold of all the total votes cast divided by 2 and adding 1 was 7,753 votes, and we did not have a candidate that met that threshold on election night. Can I have you go to the next slide? Thank you. So we conducted tabulation rounds for this race. 2 tabulation rounds were required. After the first round of tabulation, we did not have a candidate that met the threshold, so we eliminated 18 write-ins, as they were the candidates with the fewest number of votes. And then we eliminated Ricardo Oliva because it was mathematically impossible for him to be elected. And then we reallocated those votes. And then we reviewed our threshold. Our round 2 threshold was 7,155. And Nathan Coulter's vote total was 8,084. And so he had enough votes to be declared the winner for that race. Next slide. Our election night results in District 3. Our threshold was 2,356 votes, and we did not have a candidate that met that threshold. So we went to tabulation rounds for that as well. Next slide, please. We had 1 tabulation round for District 3. Once we went through and reviewed the ballots, we had 196 inactive or exhausted ballots. And so that revised our threshold to 2,258. And Lona de Alessandro had 2,332. So she had enough votes to meet that threshold and be declared the winner. And then in District 4, our election night threshold was 1,277 votes. Next slide. District 4 required 2 tabulation rounds. At the beginning of tabulation round number 2, we eliminated 5 write-ins because they were the candidates with the fewest number of votes. And then we eliminated Angela M. Coyle and Becky Strohmeyer because it was mathematically impossible for them to be elected. After round 2, our revised threshold was 1,158, and Patrick Martin had 1,311, so he had sufficient votes to be declared the winner in that race. And tonight, this is the action requested of you to certify our results for this election.
Well, thank you. Thanks for that explanation. I think every time we explain it, I think it helps, especially on camera, and so folks can watch and rewatch and hear the explanation and start to understand a bit better, because I know there was some confusion. There was still confusion despite the 80-some odd outreaches that you had and all of the information and education that was out there. I still heard from a few folks that they were a bit confused about all of this, so the more we can make this clear and understandable and as second nature as we have done in the past, I think is the way to go. Council, do we have any questions this evening? Councilmember Lohman?
Yeah, Mayor, I just had one question. When we look at turnout and we compare that to other years, how do we fare with that?
Mayor and Councilmember Lohman, I would say our turnout is about average for what you would expect for an election. We usually range anywhere from kind of 20 to 30% for our city elections, depending on what's on that ballot.
Mr. Verbrugge?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, Councilmember Lohman, I looked it up while we were sitting here. The 2019 general election had a 31.7% turnout with about 18,000 ballots cast.
Okay. Thank you for clarification. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Councilmember Coulter?
Thank you, Mayor. I recognize you don't have control over what the Secretary of State's office puts on their website, but I think one of the things that I heard the most about in terms of confusion was the fact that the total tabulation for second choice votes was listed on the Secretary of State's website, and I guess this is my way of just saying if you can pass it up the chain that number was not completely meaningless, but it told some people some things that I think folks interpreted that, I should say, in a way that confused a lot of folks. So I don't know what control we have over that, but it just felt like having that number on the website was not particularly useful. And I think it just created some more confusion. So that's more just a comment. The other comment I wanted to make, and I made this comment at our council meeting on Monday night, but I want to make it again while you're here. I just really want to say thank you to you and your staff and the election judges. That was a lot of work in a very short amount of time and with a process that was new to, well, I guess to all of us, really. And it was just done really, really, really well. And I heard nothing but good things from folks who were in the room watching it all happen, watching all the sorting and the counting and all of that. And so I just want to say thank you for doing that. I think for our first go around, that transparency was really, really important, and it was just done very well. So thank you.
Thank you. We have a fabulous team here that I'm lucky to work with.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just two quick points to echo Councilmember Coulter's point with regards to the under and over votes. It would be nice to find a system to do that, and or take a look at what our policies are on reporting that, because candidly, it seemed like the results were fairly apparent when those undervotes would be removed, and yet we spent a significant amount of time counting those, which I think is good. I think there was an opportunity to take a look at what the actual intention of voters was and make sure that they're all documented. So I think there's some positives there, which leads me into my one question, and I don't need an answer tonight, but it would be nice to get a report back on lessons learned, any changes that the city clerk's office, election judges think that we should be looking at, since this was our first time. So again, thank you for the hard work and another smooth election. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And we do have ideas, so we will come back.
Good, thank you. Yeah, no, I think I would agree completely. An after-action report, just to take a look at what worked, what could have gone better, and how we can look to improve this as we move forward would be very helpful. Council, any additional questions? If not, Council, I would look for action on our canvass of the city general election results. Councilmember Coulter.
Mayor, I will move to approve the declaration of results of the November 2nd, 2021 municipal general election as submitted by the election judges for that election.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Coulter, second by Councilmember Carter, to approve the declaration of results from our 2021 municipal general election as submitted by our general election judges. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Brillert.
Beloga,
Aye.
Carter,
Aye.
Coulter,
Aye.
Loman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Bussey.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0. So I'll echo my thanks, my congratulations, my job well done. Thank you so very much. I know it took a little bit longer, I think, than some people thought it was going to or would have liked to have seen, but I think it was just very important to do it as carefully and as thoughtfully as what you and your staff did, and also to show in a very public way the integrity of the work that you were doing. So, well done. Thank you so very much. Well done. Appreciate it. All right. Council, that was our one and only item for tonight on this. Obviously, we're going into a joint meeting at 6 o'clock with our Port Authority, but with nothing else on our agenda, I would look for a motion to adjourn this meeting of the City Council.
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to adjourn the City Council meeting for this evening. No further council discussion. Mr. Brillert.
Beloga,
Aye.
Carter,
Aye.
Coulter,
Aye.
Loman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Bussey.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0. If you're watching at home, we'll be back at the top of the hour for our joint Council Port Authority meeting to discuss a variety of issues. So thank you much again.
Thank you.